Garcetti, Newsom, Ferrer, will you give up your extravagant income during this restriction period and stand in solidarity with the very people you are putting out of work? Will you give up your income to a special fund that will directly benefit those people that you are hurting? And will you put your wealth behind your strong arm, devastating demands? Will you do this to show that you stand with the people who elected you? California, it is time for these politicians to put their money where their mouth is. Friday's news dump revealed that Los Angeles, California dictators and our governor want to shut businesses down, put restaurants out of operation, stripping people of their jobs, putting people out of work just weeks before Christmas. Think about that. These are people. They have families. They have kids with sugar plum fairies dancing in their heads in hopes that Santa Claus will be coming to town. These are people who need to pay rent. They have utilities and mortgages due. People who will now have to try to figure out how they're going to make their ends meet, let alone how they're going to get through the holidays. People with modest incomes living paycheck to paycheck. These unconstitutional restrictions are crushing people. Shutting down restaurants affects entire communities. A chain reaction from restaurant workers to restaurant suppliers, to Uber and Lyft drivers, to beverage distributors, to garbage companies, to bakers, to farmers, to everyone around. And this doesn't just affect people in the restaurant, it affects everyone. It's time for them to put their money where their mouth is and pony up. I'm calling on Health Department head Barbara Ferrer, who is calling for further shutdowns and not allowing any gatherings at all as of this coming Monday to everyone in LA, excluding protesters and religious gatherings. So on a side note, good news churches, reconvene and gather. Barbara is the one who knows the science as a virologist, and she is aware that this does not spread in open environments outside. While she sits back in her health department social welfare job, reaping a whopping $38,000 plus per month salary, it's unconscionable. And I'm also calling Governor Gavin Newsom, who makes a whopping $100,000 a month, while his wineries stay open, by the way. And I'm also calling on Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, who lives in a free mansion donated by the Gettys, making $20,000 per month. If they want to take money away from the people, then it's only fair to ask them to do the same. Garcetti, Newsom, Ferrer, will you give up your extravagant income during this restriction period and stand in solidarity with the very people you are putting out of work? Will you give up your income to a special fund that will directly benefit those people that you are hurting? And will you put your wealth behind your strong arm, devastating demands? Will you do this to show that you stand with the people who elected you? There is no science to shutting down outside dining, none. Meanwhile, these politicians, they sit there in their cushy estates on their extravagant sofas, eating their lavish meals with luxurious gifts under the Christmas trees, all while they sit back in their cozy fireplaces and their government-sponsored mansions, making their hefty incomes while stripping others of their modest ones with their unjustifiable rules. This is straight out of Scrooge. And will they think about the very people they are hurting this holiday season, and do they care? Because they're hurting the working class, not the wealthy. It's a joke. The data showed in the last lockdown, the highest spread was where the lockdowns remained, Los Angeles and New York. The data showed that the spread was in the homes, not in the restaurants and not in the stores. The data showed extending lockdowns didn't work, and the data shows us that COVID has a 99.97% cure rate, identical to the flu, which we don't lock down for, and those statistics are on the CDC website itself. So why are we running? Why? And why aren't they monitoring the flu this year? Did the big bad COVID come along and have a meeting with the familiar flu? Or are we going to assume that flu is COVID this year and keep running the flu numbers in the COVID numbers? And this is not fair. These three politicians, their salaries should be put in a special fund that can be divided up among restaurant workers and these so-called leaders who are elected to work for the people. And meanwhile, they just put people out of work. Let's give their salaries to people who work at businesses that they caused to be lost or shut down, effective Monday, November 30th. The people of California deserve better than these three officials who act like we are all in this together. No, we are not. These three officials do not live by their own rules, and they continue to take a salary, dine with family, and keep their businesses open. It is time they see what it's like in the real world. Newsom, Ferrer, Garcetti, will you stand in solidarity with the very people whose jobs you just took? And while we're at it, let's add Cuomo, Murphy, and de Blasio.